Welcome to episode 7 of AI Solutions: The Pathway to Profit. Today, we're tackling a topic that gets criminally overlooked: building an AI-ready culture. This is the non-technical, human side of a successful rollout. Look, I've seen companies spend fortunes on cutting-edge algorithms, only to watch them completely flatline. And let me be clear, it's almost never the technology's fault. It's the culture. I remember consulting for a logistics firm that had a brilliant route optimization model. It was technically perfect, but the dispatch team, the folks on the ground for 20 years, felt threatened and sidelined. They didn't trust the black box, so they found workarounds, and the whole multi-million-dollar project withered. That's why we're focusing on this today. Organizational culture is the true bedrock of AI transformation. The tech is just the engine. Culture is the road it has to drive on. So, what does an AI-ready culture actually mean? When I walk into a company, people often think it just means everyone is comfortable with technology, but that's only scratching the surface. For me, it boils down to 3 core pillars. First, a mindset of genuine curiosity. I like to see teams where people are constantly asking, what if? And are encouraged to keep learning. The second piece, and this is crucial, is psychological safety. AI requires experimentation, and experiments can fail. You need an environment where your people feel safe to try new things without fear of blame. It's about reframing failure as a valuable learning moment. And third, a company-wide commitment to data-driven decisions over gut feelings. You might find this works better not by telling people to ignore their intuition, but by encouraging them to use data to validate and strengthen it. It's a partnership, not a replacement. So where does the real momentum for this cultural shift come from? It has to start at the very top. What I like to see is leadership that does more than just sign the checks for new software. It's their job to build the narrative. You might find it works best when leaders articulate a clear, compelling vision. Not just we're implementing AI, but we're using AI to free up our best people to solve our biggest challenges. And they have to live it. When a CEO personally uses an AI dashboard to inform a key decision and talks about it, that's more powerful than 100 memos. It's about consistently connecting the dots for everyone, showing how these tools aren't a shiny new distraction, but a direct path to achieving the company's most important strategic goals. Now, let's walk directly toward the biggest fear in the room: job replacement. It's the unspoken question on everyone's mind. What I find works best is to craft a really clear and empathetic narrative from the very beginning. I encourage leaders to frame AI not as a replacement, but as a new type of assistant. The message isn't we're automating your job. It's we're automating the tedious parts of your job. You might find it powerful to say something like, this tool will handle the repetitive report pulling, so you can focus on strategy and creative problem solving. It's about augmentation. It's a tool that removes drudgery and elevates your people to do the uniquely human, high-value work they were hired for. Now, even with the most perfect, empathetic narrative, you are going to hit resistance. And let's be clear, that's not a sign of failure. It's a completely natural human reaction. What I see most often are a few common sources of pushback. There's the fear of the unknown, of course, but you might also find a perceived loss of autonomy is a big factor, especially for seasoned experts. And then there's skepticism from past tech projects that overpromised and underdelivered. To mitigate this, what I like to do is create AI ambassadors. Find those naturally curious, respected individuals within the teams, give them early access, and let them become the champions. A success story from a trusted peer is infinitely more powerful than a top-down memo. You might also find that celebrating small early wins is incredibly effective. Showcase how one team automated a tedious weekly report. That tangible success is contagious and builds real momentum. So once you start building momentum, the next crucial step is investing in your people. What I like to see is a comprehensive education strategy that isn't just siloed in the IT department. You might find it works best to think about this in 3 layers. First, there's a foundational layer for every single employee. This is about basic AI literacy. What are these tools? What can they do? And what are their limitations? This is about basic AI literacy. It demystifies the technology and gives everyone a common language. Then, the second layer is role-specific. Your marketing team doesn't need to know how to code an algorithm, but they do need to know how to use an AI-powered analytics tool effectively. This is practical, hands-on training for the direct users. And finally, the third layer is that deep, advanced training for your technical teams, the ones building and maintaining these systems. By approaching it this way, you're not just training a few specialists, you're methodically raising the entire organization's data IQ. Everyone becomes more confident and capable in this new environment. Now, raising everyone's data IQ is foundational, but it leads directly to the next critical piece, breaking down those internal silos. You might find it helpful to think of AI projects not as IT tasks, but as team sports. What I see fail time and again, the tools built by a brilliant technical team working in a vacuum. They can't possibly know all the business nuances. Let's take a concrete example. Say you want to build an AI-powered sales forecasting tool. IT can build the engine, sure, but for the fuel, you need historical sales data, which lives with your finance team. For the steering, you absolutely need the sales team's input. They know the clients, the market shifts, and what a good forecast actually looks like in practice. And for the road ahead, marketing needs to provide data on upcoming campaigns that will completely change future sales patterns. When you bring those teams together, you don't just build a tool. You build a shared business solution that actually works. This brings us to one of the most critical elements, something that underpins all of this work: psychological safety. You see, real innovation with AI demands experimentation. And let's be honest, experimentation means not everything is going to work on the first try. What I like to see is a culture that actively removes the fear of blame. You might find this works best when leaders model the behavior themselves. I always encourage senior team members to be the first to share their own learning moments. Times an idea didn't pan out as expected. When a leader openly says, "Here's a risk I took, and here's what we learned from it," it gives everyone else permission to be bold. It signals that intelligent risk-taking is what you value, not just flawless execution. This creates the space for your team to truly explore what's possible, which is where the real breakthroughs happen. And that sense of safety is key when you start talking about the lifeblood of any AI system. It's data. For decades, data was often hoarded, locked away in departmental silos. What I like to see is a fundamental shift where data is treated like a valuable, shared company asset, not a private kingdom. But here's the crucial part. You can't just open the floodgates. That often creates more noise than signal. You might find it works better to couple wider access with robust training in data literacy. This isn't about turning your whole company into data scientists. It's about giving everyone the basic grammar to understand, interpret, and even question the information they're seeing. When data becomes a shared language instead of a guarded secret, you empower your entire team to have more insightful conversations and make smarter, more collaborative decisions. Now, as you build this culture of open data, there's a conversation that absolutely cannot wait. It's about building ethical guardrails. What I like to see is companies treating responsible AI as a day one priority, not a day 100 emergency. You might find it works best to be proactive and establish clear, simple policies from the very beginning. I tend to focus on three areas. First, data privacy. How are we protecting and using employee and customer data? Second, algorithmic fairness. Are we actively checking our models for unintended bias? And third, transparency. Can we explain in plain language how our AI tools arrive at their conclusions? Building this ethical framework isn't just about avoiding risk. It's about building deep, lasting trust with both your employees and your customers. It's a non-negotiable pillar of a mature and sustainable AI culture. So, after all this work on leadership, communication, and trust, how do you actually know if the needle is moving? How do you measure something as seemingly intangible as culture? What I like to see is a move toward a few concrete indicators. The obvious place to start is with tool adoption rates. Are people actually using the new systems? But beyond that, you might find it works better to use targeted surveys. Don't just ask, do you like AI? See, it oversimplifies things. Instead, ask, do you feel this tool helps you focus on more valuable work? For me, the real gold standard is tracking the number of employee-initiated AI projects. When your team starts bringing you ideas, you've won. And when you see these positive signals, reinforce them. You don't have to break the bank. What I see work wonders is simple public recognition. Celebrate the team that automated a tedious report. This creates a powerful feedback loop, showing everyone exactly what success looks like. So as we wrap up our journey through the human side of AI, what I want you to take away is this. Your success will depend on your culture just as much as your code. What I like to see is a solid foundation built on those four pillars we discussed: strong leadership, clear communication, continuous education, and unwavering ethics. You might find it helpful to always remember that the technology is just the engine. Your culture is the road you have to drive on. A powerful engine on a muddy track goes nowhere fast. But now that we've prepared that ground, now that the road is paved, it's time to look under the hood. I hope you'll join me for the next episode, demystifying the AI tech stack, what you actually need to get started.